If you're new to this channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Logan. This is Timeless Personal Growth and Development. And today we're talking about child development. And today we're going to go into how to cope if you have a child with autism. So let's get started. But if you're brand new to this channel and you don't know what this channel is about or what I talk about child development, I talk about a healthy mindset, I talk about productivity, I talk about building the physique that you want and building relationships with your children and building real healthy relationships with your partners. Today, building healthy relationships with your children, how to cope with a child with autism. So let's begin here. If you've never heard of autism and what autism entails, autism is a developmental disorder characterized by difficulties with social interaction and communication by restricted and repetitive behaviors. And before you ask yourself, well, who's this guy? Why is he qualified to talk about autism? Well, I've worked in the education system for 10 years. I have worked with many children with autism. And I have a degree in special care counseling in terms of working with children with autism and working with adults as well. So I've been doing this for a while. I have a good amount of extensive experience, and I can provide you with some tips of how to cope if you have a child with autism. And yes, it can be very challenging, it can be very draining, it can be very difficult. I've communicated and worked with parents who have been through difficult times with their child, and what I've noticed is parents get very lost, and if they get very lost and they don't know what to do. They don't know what approach to take when they have a child with autism. And if they've never experienced it before, they looking for different ideas of what to do. And it can be very draining, it can be very discouraging, it can be very heartbreaking for these parents. So, helping your child with autism thrive, tip 1 is to provide structure and safety. One of the best tools that you can use for a child with autism is structure. Kids in general need structure. Neurotypical children need structure as well, but it is more important for children with autism. It is so important that they have structure, because part of their anxiety is not knowing what's coming next. Having transitions are very difficult for them, so it helps their anxiety by knowing what's coming next and being able to create a visual schedule for them. They need to be able to see that. So even if it's at school, and especially when it's home, they need that visual schedule. They need to be able to know what's coming. It eases their anxiety. So you got to stick to that schedule and make sure that you're on the same page at home and at school. So be able to build a rapport and be on a good communicative basis with the teacher, and knowing what you're doing at school and what you're doing at home matches. Especially children who are on the spectrum of autism. If what you're doing at home and your rules and your schedule don't match what's being done at home, it can be very confusing and can cause a lot of unnecessary anxiety and a lot of angst that will create more problematic behaviors. Look for nonverbal cues. Children with autism can have sometimes, not all of them, but sometimes can have a little bit of a lack of apathy. So it's hard to read them and hard to pick up on their nonverbal cues. So if you know your child well, you'll be able to pay attention and be able to look at them and being able to see when they're upset. And sometimes that'd be hard because it's a lack of apathy, so sometimes they're not very expressive. If they are going through a crisis, if they are going through a meltdown, yes, they will be expressive. but you'll see a lot of lack of eye contact. They'll talk to you a lot of the time, and they'll be kind of looking at you like this and not making that eye contact. I've heard in workshops before that you want to get children to make with autism and get that eye contact with them and be able to develop getting comfortable with that eye contact. And then there's some workshops I've been to where you don't want to get them to have that eye contact because it overwhelms them, causes anxiety. I understand both sides of the argument. I understand both sides. But it's the social and communication part of the brain that's where they're lacking, and that's where they need to work on, is building those social skills. And getting them to make eye contact is important, but don't overwhelm them with it. Don't be constantly telling them to maintain that eye contact. Train your child with autism, train them to let them make that eye contact for 3-4 seconds, and then they look around, and then be able to come back to it, make eye contact 3-4 seconds, and then go back. You want them to push through their anxiety step by step. And this is an important one. I'm going to go into anxiety and overcoming anxiety with children with autism, because they can get fixated on little certain aspects of their life. They can get a lot of fixations that we don't understand. Maybe as parents we don't understand those fixations, or they have anxiety over certain things that we don't understand, that we won't be able to identify with. So I'll give you an example. Years and years ago, I was working with this young boy, and he was terrified of the water. He was so scared of going to the water. So it was at a summer camp, so I was trying slowly to integrate him into his swimming lessons. And the swimming teachers wanted me to get him into the water. And just get him into the water. Like, he has so much anxiety when it came to water. I can't just throw him into the pool, right? I can't just do that. One, I couldn't just throw him into the pool. One, because that wouldn't break his anxiety. That would just make it worse. That would traumatize him. Two, he would not be going into the pool on his own accord. It wouldn't be his idea. It would be me physically forcing him to do something that's just going to create trauma and that's going to create problems. He needs to be able to do it on his own free will. I'm taking the free will out of his control by just picking him up and just throwing him in. It's not his idea, it's mine. You want him to be able to do it on his own. Third, and this is the most important aspect of it, if I were just to throw him in the water and not gradually get him used to the water and just throw him into the deep end right away, it would destroy the trust he has for me. He wouldn't trust me after that. And this, not just with children who are on the spectrum, it's with children in general. You have to develop mutual trust. They need to be able to trust you. When they can trust you, then they can respect you. And then they'll feel comfortable with you that you're leading them, keyword lead them, in the right direction that's going to be best for them. So this boy with autism who had the fear of going to the water, and water created great anxiety, have him just sit on the edge of the water and just put his feet in. And create little goals. So, okay, it's Monday. Today, he's going to sit for 15 minutes with his feet in the water. And that's it. That's all he's going to do. Tuesday comes along. What's he going to do? He's going to sit on the ladder. He's going to be going down the ladder and just going up there standing on the ladder for 15 minutes and the water going right up to his waist. And that's it. That's all he's going to do. Wednesday comes along, he's going to be in the water and I'll be holding him. And that's it. And he'll just be walking around with a life vest on and just walking around. And that's it. Slowly building incremental steps for him to get comfortable in the water. And children have anxiety for a vast variety of different things that we may not understand. to be able to overcome those anxieties, yes, we got to push them through it. Think of their anxiety as kind of a little box. We want to make that box bigger, right? So the things that create anxiety become less and less and less. We want to push them through it. You're not going to push them through it for one shot, because like I said, it's going to destroy trust and it's going to traumatize them. And they're not doing it from their own free will. It's not their idea, it's yours. So when a child with autism is having a meltdown, and I've seen this before, and he's just taking off his clothes, and you got to get somewhere, you can physically take him and put his clothes back on. Well, what's going to happen? He's just going to take his clothes back off again, because you're getting his clothes on, sure, but he's not doing it from his own free will, from his own accord. You're doing it for him. So you need to be able to not manipulate the situation. You've got to be socially tactful, tactical, in a way where you push him through the crisis, you get him through that meltdown. His emotions are going to go really high, and then they're going to slowly come down. And you just got to ride that wave of emotions with him. And as that wave comes down, so his emotions come down, he'll be able to do exactly what you wanted him to do, and what he's expected to do is to put his clothes back on. And if he does it on his own, that's better, because he's not going to take it back off, because he's doing it from his own free will and his own accord. And it's his idea, it's not yours. Make time for fun, and that's important, because children with autism, it can be very challenging. It can be very exhausting, extremely exhausting for them. When you have those unstructured moments, and it's important for kids to have those unstructured moments and that free time and that play, that's the time to connect with them and to play with them. And children on the spectrum, they can be a lot of fun, and they can have a fantastic sense of humor. And you make time for fun with them, that's like with no different than any child or any human. Make time for fun, and you'll be able to connect through play and be able to do activities with them, and they'll be able to trust and respect you and be able to associate you with positive emotions. Pay attention to your child's sensory sensitivities, so they can be very sensitive to certain things. I worked with a child years ago where he didn't like the texture of bread, so his parents would always pack sandwiches for him, and he hated the taste of bread. He would just take the bread away and just eat the lettuce and eat the meat inside, but he hated the texture of bread. For whatever goddamn reason, he had sandwiches every day. So little things like that. Okay, he doesn't like sandwiches, doesn't like bread. Don't give him bread. Give them something else. If you know it's something that you can avoid, and it's not necessarily something he needs to overcome to be able to become a fully functional, healthy, happy adult in the future, okay, he doesn't like bread, fine. I don't like red peppers. I don't need to overcome, my distaste for red peppers. Why? Does it has no significant impact in my life if I'm not eating red peppers? No, it doesn't matter. But being able to effectively socialize with people, yes, that's something you need to do. So if they have anxiety over something that's more social based and more communication based, yes, those are anxieties that you need to push them through. And you have to help them overcome that. Little by little, tiny little incremental steps over time will help them. You're not going to do it in a day. You're not going to do it in a week or month. It takes time. It takes an incredible amount of patience. You got to be patient. You got to know your objective. You got to know your goal, what you want your child to overcome, and be consistent with that every day. Don't lose patience. Always keep the big picture in mind and just keep going. And the last point I'm going to make is consistency. Like I said, be patient, but when you are patient with your child and your child's anxiety and your child's fixations, you got to be consistent with that structure, with that routine every single day, with that little discipline that you give them, those little disciplines that you get, and be able to push them through it over time. Because if you're inconsistent in your behaviors as a professional or as a parent, that's just going to cause more problems and more anxiety. And whatever you're helping your child to overcome, you're not going to be able to overcome it, because they're not going to trust your consistency and not be able to trust your patience. That's going to take time and consistency. And if you are a parent or professional working with children with autism, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If you're primarily if you're working with a child with autism, make sure you're doing it for the right reason, because you generally care about educating children, and you generally care about raising the next generation. If you plan to be parents and you have a child with autism, of course, stuff like that isn't planned. It's not something you wanted, of course. Is it the end of the world? No, because do children with autism deserve any kind of less respect and love and affection? No, they don't. It's just going to be a little more challenging. It's just going to take a little more consistency, a little more scheduling, a little more patience. And be able to understand, yes, that may be a child, but it's still your child. Yes, and they still need your love and your support for them. And over time, you're in it if you decide that you're in it for the long haul, and over time, it will pay off. Because what you want to do as a parent is be able to provide them with the best life possible, and having their social skills and communication skills aren't going to be as optimized as possible. You want to be able to optimize it as much as possible as you can, so they can have the best quality of life. And don't forget, when it comes to people on the spectrum, they may be at a deficit when it comes to communication and socialization, but they're also parts of their brain also get amplified. So they may be don't underestimate them. They're very intelligent in certain ways. Very intelligent, and they can be very, very creative. Way more than neurotypical individuals. And on that note, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you can comment, like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Logan Ryder, Timeless Personal Growth and Development. And I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one.